Hello everyone, Maurice saying here. Welcome to Tanks Invest, where we're going to be talking about investing, finance, and professional development. For today's video is for entertainment purposes only. The stock that we talk about today would be Square, ticker SQ. I've been observing Square for quite some time now, and as you know, ever since in Q1, ever since we hit that peak of the $283, we've been selling off significantly, kind of trading on a sideways consolidated downward spiral version at the moment. And as of today, it's been down by 5.15% as the time of recording, and I'm recording as of May 17th right now. And this is a major resistance level right now. Currently, we're testing at $197, $198 level, which historically speaking, we have tested this level multiple times. And each time we have like a huge amount of V-shaped recovery. And I believe that Square is currently forming a relatively strong resistance level with a lot of institutional interest coming, which also serves as a great buying opportunity for us retail investors as well. So I'm going to go through a technical analysis to go through where I see the stock going from here based on the trends that we're seeing both on a macroeconomical perspective, also on a psychological perspective. Look at the chart. I'm also going to go through the chart to go through what specific resistance level should we be watching out for that could serve as a buying opportunity for us in case you want to be buying into, and my year-end price prediction for 2021 as well. So stay tuned, stick around, and let's make some money. Alright, so moving on to the technical analysis, you can see that on an annual chart that you see in front of you right now. Looking on a daily spectrum, you can see that ever since last year in November, we were trading up basically at the bottom of $175, $167 level. And because of the whole work from home situation that we've been experiencing has further extended out into this year so far, that there was a sector rotation into the growth and technology stocks, right? And Square is one of the forefront for the fintech solutions, specifically for their mobile payment solutions, but also on online e-commerce site solutions that it provides for a lot of e-commerce companies, knowing the fact that most people were buying stuff or transacting on the merchant business online, which subsequently propels Square the stock price upward, right? So you see it definitely a lot of combinations of both consumer retail investors but also institutional investors, which you see in these like major green candles here and there, right? So we basically consolidated sideways, but more of an uptrend. And ever since in Q1, because of the positive CPI report and the expectations of the whole economy to be coming back up again, we basically rally all the way from the the $200 level all the way to the $283 level, which is an enormous gain, both coming from institutional investors but also with I would say it's more like 80% institutional investors, 20% consumer retail investors. And ever since then, because of the whole Federal Reserve speech that's been occurring on a basically bi-monthly basis, and sometimes even on a weekly basis, and also with respect to the scare that we get from the inflation news that we get from Jerome Powell, with respect to monetary policies, with respect to just how much we have grown last year, right? This is just overly stretched. If you look at that on the chart wise, if I drew a line, hypothetically, you see that the outlier was pretty major, right? Which subsequently drove this like upside reverse V-shaped downsell. And on top of that, last year we gained so much, and Q1 is typically a tax season. It's typically a lower season as well in comparison to other quarters, because like in Q4, a lot of hedge funds also do something called window dressing, that they like to push the stock up to make it look like they are doing something, great on a return on investment perspective, just to make it like on the weighted average cost perspective for the year to look higher than it's supposed to be, which subsequently drove this upward, right? So it sold off significantly, and we sold off all the way to in the March crash that we had because of the negative news that we got from the Federal Reserve on the inflation that subsequently scared people away, and it sold off so majorly, and it bounced back up, and it kind of created like a dead cat bounce type of momentum and bounced back down again because of just like the emotional roller coaster that we've been seeing from all the weekly Federal Reserve speech, but also the CPI report that we've been getting on every mid of the month, right? Somewhere around the 15, which you can see that it drove up to this point because of the anticipation that we were going to get a good positive CPI report and then subsequently sell the news and sold downwards. And same thing again, anticipation ahead of time to the CPI report that is going to be positive again. Pumped up the stock all the way up back to the 275 and then sold down backwards, right? And same thing happening again. But ever since then, we've been selling off more and more and more because the media affectation and hedge fund manipulation basically is the same thing. It's been, baking into the stock, saying that, oh, inflation's getting worse and worse and worse. That the dollar is devaluating, economy is going to basically downward spiral, that it's time to sell. It's time to sell. And that's why it's driving this selling momentum, right? You could see that the majority of it is basically consumer retail investors with some institutional investors, which is like you could see the green candles here and there. But it's more of like a downward push right now. And you could see that we're currently testing the same level that we tested back in the March crash. And this also, we were tested one time back in November last year. So this is a very strong resistance level, right? Look at the V shape, how steep that is, and look at how much we pumped from November, right? And right now we're testing right now, you can see that we're consolidating at the moment. It's taking some time to breach that level, right? So in terms of like the risk benefit reward ratio perspective, I think right now is a fairly good price for us to get into, knowing the fact that we sold off so much, right, from like the 280, right? We basically sold off by like $90, which is a seismic downside, 40% downside so far, approximately, right? That I think, and the next resistance level, if we go down even more, will be somewhere around like the 180-ish level, which in comparisons to right now 198. That's only like an $18 downside, right? But the upside is pretty enormous from here, and I think we actually could breach through that to almost get to like 300, even past to 350 in the next 12 months, like contingent on the rotations coming back, sometimes in Q3, and also the economy coming back. And Square is going to be the forefront for capturing that e-commerce and the retail growth. A lot of like food carts and obviously merchants that are entrepreneurial nowadays, right? So definitely a good stock to buy in right now with this dip. I think I'm definitely going to start building my position here at the 198. That's just my personal appetite of risk, and the downside from here is really going to be minimal, right? I think the lowest you could go is like going to be somewhere around like the 170, which is it's a $20 downside. But I think if you further dollar cost average, if it keeps going down, and knowing that the base is pretty strong that's formed here, that for us to like basically ride this back up, also on top of all the sell-off that we've had already, the upside is a lot higher than the downside from here. So definitely a good stock to look out for. And just quickly look at tip ranks real quick. You can see that out of the 33 analyst ratings, 21 buys, 9 holds, and 3 sales. So definitely very bullish as a stock based on Wall Street consensus. And you can see that on minimum, on average, is 287, which is going to drive you like about 40% of an upside, like I said, right? Very attractive price point, and I think as low as we could get, it's going to be around like 160, right? Which again is still relatively low in terms of like the risk and reward spectrum. But on a high level, that's going to be somewhere around 380 based on Wall Street consensus, or out of the 33 analysts, right? I mean, one of them is going to be right? And I think most of them are bullish on it. So just think about that in the statistical perspective, and also look at the fundamental charts perspective. I think the risk rewards ratio is pretty good, right, in terms of my risk appetites. It's just to recap on all the numbers that we talked about with respect to Square, ticker SQ. I think right now the $197 50 would be a fair price for us to get into. Knowing the fact, if you think long term, I think there's a huge upside potential from here with very minimal risk, downside pressure that we should be experiencing going forward. But if we further break into this resistance level of 197.50, I think the next level is going to be 191 before we hit that 190 level on more of a psychological resistance level. And if we further break down into the $185 level, which by that point it will just be so highly oversold. We'll be like down like 50% by then. That's just a steal level to me. And I think if we ever get down to that level, I would just load up from there and I would buy in significantly heavily, like it's no tomorrow. And based on just a lot of institutional buying activities, I believe the $200 level, we have generated a lot of appetites across the board. A lot of institutionals actually looked out for the level right about like the $195, $200 level, which we saw a lot of buying opportunities, a lot of green candles from there. But knowing the fact that we breached that, so a lot of institutions are actually down at the moment, that 185 just an extremely cheap discount level for us to get into a long-term perspective. And my prior price target for year end will be 20 for 2021 will be 350, which subsequently if you buy in at this moment at 195, that will give you about 77% of an upside, or close to 1.8 times of your money, or even close to 2 times depending on like what price point you want to buy into. That is an enormous gain in just within just the 7-8 months from now, or even 12 months from now, which is that's atypical for you to generate something this substantial with that short amount of time. Also with respect to the value proposition and the differentiation that the business stands for, getting to this level is pretty realistic, and it wouldn't wouldn't be that much of a stretch in my opinion. Alright, so that's it for my technical analysis on Square Tickets SQ. Really appreciate you guys dropping by again. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button, also that bell notification below, and please look out for my next video. Thank you so much. Take care.